Hi, as I promised you, now this video will be the Sex and God video that I've been talking about for such a long time. If you haven't watched the introduction video about the Trinity and about the relationships inside of the Trinity, please watch it, because I'm gonna be referring to this video all the time. And I made that introduction because most of the things I'm saying here won't make sense without it. So if it is the first video you watch, please watch this introduction video afterwards, because they don't really make sense without each other. As a short recap, we were talking about the relationships inside of the Trinity and how humanity was born in the inside of this loving communion, and how much this image of God in man and woman and in their relationship is the perfect representation of the nature of God. And we're gonna continue with that. Here we have the Trinitarian love circle, and in the inside of it, in the very core of it, is humanity. And to make it more visible and understandable, this circle of human love is written here. So this circle is that circle, but I'm gonna be comparing a little bit the two of them, so I needed two sides. This love circle of the Trinity is the original. This is the first, this is the blueprint. This is the thing that existed before all of creation. And God created that image or mock-up or representation to give us something tangible, something understandable of their love and their way of connecting with each other. Both the distinction between them and their union and unity are aspects of relationship they have written into the human relationship. And I'm not a marriage counselor or any kind of advisor, or I'm not really an expert on the topic of sexuality and marriage. I've never been married, so I'm not gonna give you a professional teaching. I'm gonna give you some revelations on this topic, and I hope it will help you and encourage you, and at times maybe it will wake you up from your ideas, and maybe it will elevate your perspectives on both of these relationships. So let's dive in. Most of the marriage counseling comes from that perspective that if we see the agape love inside of the Trinity. They're sacrificial, faithful, compassionate, caring, comforting, kind, gentle love, then maybe we should observe this love and act it out in our human affairs and relationships. And in this way, we can draw conclusions from the original picture to the image. And it is a good kind of approach and a lot of wisdom in that. I'm not a marriage counselor, so I can't really talk deeply on that. What I'm gonna be talking about a little bit more is that if we look at the image, we can have an understanding what the original might be like. I'm a visual merchandiser and interior designer, and I've made so many little mock-ups of great decorations and buildings. And even if you are far from that kind of creative things, you have definitely been to a museum where you saw those tiny landscapes with tiny trains and houses made of medicine boxes and that kind of thing. And a mock-up has details, and all the details on it refer to something greater, bigger, more extended, more tangible, heavier detail in the original building. So if there is a small paper sculpture on that little building, the original building must have a large marble statue. So it's like everything you have on the small mock-up will appear on the original building in a much greater way. However, there are details on the original building that cannot be reflected or it cannot be done on a mock-up. And the mock-up is just to give an impression of the original. Some details are covered, not all of the details of the original are covered, but all the details that appear on the mock-up is for the sole purpose of giving an idea of what the original looks like. This is the same with human sexuality and marriage. Everything that appears between a man and a woman is something that the original love circle of the Trinity has always had. And we can draw serious conclusions from both perspectives. If we really examine human relationships, we can come to the conclusion that the original after which this image had been made is something marvelous. Something that is even more intensive, more beautiful, more blissful, more committed, more loving, more gentle. And I think it's a rightful thing, it's the right thing to do, to draw conclusions from this circle about the first circle. There were times when I was just observing couples and how they like treated each other and how they were loving on each other, just to realize that, okay, this is something I already experienced in my relationship with God. So what I would like to do now is giving you a view of the human history as a love story between God and man. You are in that circle in Jesus as Jesus, so I can write you on. Before I dive into the historical overview, there's one little thing I want to mention. At many marriage counseling, people talk about like marriage is covenant, and we should like respect it because it's important and it's important to God, and we shouldn't break our covenant. And it's kind of true. I don't think it's a false idea, but I think it's not just I think. I'm absolutely convinced that the bond between a man and a woman is way holier than a covenant. It's not a legal issue. It's more like a sacrament, a visible manifestation of the grace of God on the earth. So it's not just like they have this special kind of commitment to each other. A man and a woman are the image of God on the earth. As I said this in the previous video, I saw this book, Theology of God, on the shelf, and I started to read it. And it is all about sexuality, and I just felt like I'm looking into the face of God when I was reading it. And I didn't quite understand it back then, why I felt like that, but now I know. Because it's a sacrament, because it's his intention, it's their intention to represent their kind of love in a tangible form. We always tell God, you are unapproachable, we cannot touch you, we cannot see you, we cannot feel you. And God said, okay, I made something that you can taste and see and you can enjoy, and that is tangible for you, and this is what I look like. And many times we are like offended because the way we experience sexuality is way dirtier than that. Even if you are like, even if you lived in perfect purity your whole life, you definitely had like thoughts and approaches that were twisted. So we are all part of the twistedness of the human sexuality, and that's where we are at right now as humanity. And this is why sometimes it hurts when God just says that this is something that is the demonstration of his nature. But he says it is good. He created this whole man and woman thing, and he said it is good. And we should allow God to elevate human sexuality to that height. We always say that there's this over-sexualization of women and sex trafficking and porn and all that, and we say that sexuality is overemphasized and it's glorified and it's twisted, and we put too much value on that. But it is just the contrary. We don't value the sexuality enough. We don't see it as God sees it. He sees it as something that is just like Him. That is His face. He knows that this is His face. This is how He looks like. This is the kind of passion and desire and longing and union and ecstasy that they are experiencing from the beginning, before the beginning of time. And this is what they want us to experience with them and in our relationships with others. God gives this image of His way of love and relationship and union so that we might know what He is like, and we might know what He longs for with us. He longs for that kind of distinction and union with humanity. So, everything the Bible says about this is true about this and the other way around, and we can draw crazy conclusions. So when Eve appeared and Adam said, "This is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones," this is the cry of God over His creation. I've found a spouse that is worthy of me. You are of me, you are from me, you are just like me. You are rightfully my bride. This is something God is singing over you and over the whole humanity. You are flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones. And the whole human story, in some sense documented in the Bible, is about God creating a bride for Himself, a perfect spouse for Himself, giving her separate identity and real and person and being, and this bride of Him walking away from Him, and He is calling her back and He refuses it, and then in Jesus this brokenness of their relationship is over, because in Jesus whole of humanity had been brought into union with God. And the end is the marriage supper of the Lamb, where we are enjoying this unity with God for eternity. So the whole of Bible kind of tells God's love story with you personally and with His creation. After the fall of man, God has been speaking through the prophets and calling His bride back through their voice. And God always talks about, most of the time talks about the woman that has been adulterous and unfaithful to Him, and who has forgotten him, and he's calling back that I'm gonna forgive you, I'm gonna comfort you, I'm gonna be kind to you, just come back to me. So I'm gonna read a couple of Bible verses. About God's approach to humanity as bridegroom to bride. The Lord will call you back, as if you were a wife deserted and distressed in spirit, a wife who married young, only to be rejected, says the Lord. No longer will they call you deserted or name your land desolate, but you will be called Hephzibah, for the Lord will take delight in you, and your land will be married. As a young man marries a young woman, so will your builder marry you. As a bridegroom rejoices over his bride, so will your God rejoice over you. The reason why I stopped is that the Hebrew word had been put into that translation, but in some translations it says, your land will be called married to God, which is kind of cool. This is what the Lord says. I remember the devotion of your youth, how as a bride you loved me and followed me through the wilderness, through a land not sown. Then I passed by you and saw you, and behold, you were at the time for love. So I spread my skirt over you and covered your nakedness. I also swore to you and entered into a covenant with you, so that you become mine, declares the Lord God. Hosea, the Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another man and is adulterous. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. The main point is raisin cakes, I think. So it's crazy to see that the relationship with God is always being compared to the relationship between God, between man and woman, and we don't really get it. Like, is it a holy thing? Like, we shouldn't like mix those up. But God is the one who mixes those up, and God is the one who thinks that they should be related. So every time Israel turns away from him, he calls it adultery. And this is happening for a purpose. God always wants to emphasize this in our minds, that this is a relationship I have inside of myself, and this is the kind of relationship you have with each other, and this is the kind of relationship I want to have with you as my bride. And any kind of brokenness of this of these relationships can be called adultery. And Hosea is the perfect representation of this whole search of God for his lost bride. That prophet literally marries this prostitute and buys her back and pays a lot of money, and people turn away from him, and it's a shameful and sacrificial thing that he has to go through to prove his love to a woman who is not really worthy of it, or looks like she's not worthy of it. And this is just like God and Israel and God and humanity. Jesus was the one who sacrificed his whole life and paid a high price to buy his bride back. And the bride was so rejective of him that it even crucified him. And he used this very act of rejection to make the bride one with him again. There is a psalm who has this approach as well. Psalm 45, if you're interested, you can read the whole chapter. It is a messianic psalm. It's all about Jesus appearing as King in glory. And there is this Queen in glory who completely suits him, who looks just like him. And I'm going to read a short section of this psalm. Listen, daughter, and pay careful attention. Forget your people and your father's house. Let the king be enthralled by your beauty. Honor him, for he is your Lord. Yes, this whole section is showing that God has found in you the perfect spouse for himself. And he's longing to have you in that relationship with him. He's longing to experience relationship with you as with a distinct person, like getting closer, telling things to each other. He wants to have this whole dynamic of two persons having a romance, and he also wants to have union instead of relationship with you. He wants to be completely merged into you, and he wants both aspects. And the part of the Bible that is really about that is Song of Songs in the middle of the Bible. I think it's kind of cool that Song of Songs is in the middle of the Bible. It shows me a little bit that God thought it would be important to have a romantic poem book in the middle of the Bible. And I think that Song of Songs is the love song of literal people literally in love. But Holy Spirit is in us, and he was in them as well. And there is a deeper layer to that poem book, and this is the reality of Christ and the bride. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He browses me among the lilies. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like fire, like a mighty flame, or the flame of the Lord. I am yours and you are mine. This is something that is being repeated in that book. And this is something God wants you to know with Him. When you are completely His and is completely yours. And seal over your heart and hand. This refers to the crucifixion. Jesus had been pierced at His hands and at His heart, and this was the seal of love on Him. Unyielding as the grave. Of course, this talks about resurrection. The fire is the fire of the Lord. It says that this fire they are experiencing among themselves as lovers is the very fire that is flowing through these persons of the Trinity. They are not like it, they are the same. It's not just like, oh, human romance is a little bit like the love of God. God says that these flames are the same flames. Of course, we experience it differently, but this is not how it's supposed to be. If we believe in the salvation of our whole humanity, like the whole bodies, if we believe that we can be free from different attitudes and bad behaviors, why don't we believe that our practice and approach and understanding of human sexuality can also be saved and can also be just like without the fall of man? Scarcely had I passed them when I found the one my heart loves. I held him and would not let him go till I had brought him to my mother's house, to the room of the one who conceived me. Song of Songs is very colorful in language and very beautiful, but you have to face it that it's very erotic. Like, a lot of passages are about clearly sex, and we can jump over those if we spend enough time among Christians that we don't even see the obvious anymore. But I think it's important not to hide certain details, because it's an inspired text. So there's a purpose behind this kind of passionate poem. This is something that God wanted us to tell, that God wanted to tell us that this kind of love is my kind of love, and this is something that I appreciate and admire, and I said it's good, and I've never withdrawn it. But also, this is the kind of love I want with you, and I want to take you into my room and experience union with you, because I'm longing to be one with you as with my bride. So yeah, it's also the expression of God's desire for humanity. And as I said before, if we see something very passionate and joyful and intensive and gentle in that love circle, it is all only possible because it exists in an even greater extension in that love circle. The story of Esther is also a story about like salvation. Of course, this Babylonian king is not the perfect picture of God, but in the sense that the wife can always come in to the room of the king and can always have the mercy of the king. And the king chooses her from all the other girls. This is something how God relates to us. And if you want a little bit of homework, you can read the book of Esther through that lens. It is not a perfect, but it is an image of the salvation of mankind. So a lot of prophets articulate this kind of call of God to the bride right until the appearance of Jesus, or to be more accurate, of John the Baptist. He said, "The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete." John the Baptist obviously realized this nature of Jesus, that he is the bridegroom coming back for his bride, and he thought he was this friend of the bridegroom, and that he was like joyful that this meeting of the bride and bridegroom happened, and this is why he could say that now I'm gonna decrease because something greater is going on. I love that the first miracle of Jesus was at the wedding in Cana, and I really love this creation of wine, because the wine has always been the symbol of the love of God and of romance and passion and blood and all that. And I love that it happened on a wedding, because this relationship, when lived separately from that circle, can absolutely run out of wine. Can absolutely run out of the wine of the love of God. And this is what Jesus wanted to show, that I am that love. I am that overflowing, intoxicating wine, and I'm gonna fill your human relationships with that kind of love. And it's more than enough. Even if you are drunk, I'm gonna make hundreds of liters as an extra, because this is my nature, abundance of love given over to everyone who is ready to drink it. So yeah, our human relationships, and especially sexuality, can be really twisted without the wine of God. And this is something Jesus came to restore, that I'm gonna give my wine to that kind of relationship. I'm gonna fill up this marriage. It's really hard for me to articulate, but Jesus just wanted to show that the flow of love and bliss that I'm experiencing in my relationship with my Father is now being poured out abundantly to you and to your relationship. And Jesus also talks about like marriage and divorce, and he quotes Moses about like the man should leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they would become one flesh. And what God has united, no one should separate. And we always quote it when someone is about to get divorced. But as I said, references go both ways. So if Jesus said this about human affairs, it might be true of eternal affairs as well. Jesus was the one who left his father and left his mother, and on the cross he became one flesh. He gave up his body for his wife and became one with her. And they are no longer separable. And we shouldn't pretend as if it was separable. We shouldn't try to convince each other that you are not that close, you should get a bit more mature, because what God has made one, we shouldn't separate it. And he has been made one with you forever, and it's beyond doubt, and it's something that cannot be separated by man. The parable of the 10 virgins also gives this impression that God is coming back as a bridegroom for his bride. And I don't want to talk about who is in, who is out, and hell issues. I don't think this parable is that much about that. But I really love that there were these brides who loved him and waited for him. And I think this is going to happen to humanity these days, that we will start to long for him and wait for God and want to be with him. And there will be this natural desire for him. So I don't think we should like really worry about what is the oil and who is in and who is out. It's more about like, if you start to love him, you want to be with him and you want to go into a wedding with him. And this is what he's longing for. Where is my bride who wants to be with me and hang out with me? I don't want to like decide deep theological questions on inclusion and all that. But I love this this approach of this parable, that it is not literal, but that part of like Jesus coming for his bride is something that doesn't just happen there. It keeps showing up and bumping up throughout the whole scriptures. Woman at the well. The woman asks, they're talking about like who is thirsty, and Jesus says that if you knew who I was, you would have asked for water. And then they jump into this question of how many husbands she used to have, and the one who she lives with is not her husband, and all that. And it's like the perfect image of humanity with Jesus in that story. Like, there's this adulterous woman trying to find love everywhere, and now she meets Jesus, and she realizes that what she was thirsty after and what she was looking for in all kinds of places is now here with her. And every time you don't like experience the wholeness and satisfaction and bliss that is yours in the circle of the Trinity, you will try to press out and earn some kind of similar love and passion in your relationships. And when people say that the world is so twisted that they are all about sexuality and they are in bondage with pornography and all that, and I think they are not that deceived. They can't experience the ecstasy of the love of God. So they are looking for the next thing, the closest thing. And the closest image is human sexuality. So this is the reason why it is so twisted, because we try to get the love we are so desiring for and that we are created for from something that is the closest to the original. And this relationship is the closest to the original. So Jesus talking to the adulterous woman is such a perfect picture of like the whole humanity. You are lost. You are not partaking in the worship. They are talking about worship. In this original worship. So you are trying to find everything you need in the image of the original worship. And when Jesus didn't judge the adulterous woman, it's also about humanity. You lost me, you don't want me, and I don't judge you. And Jesus was like really pretty much friends with prostitutes and tax collectors, so he wasn't playing the safe game. He knew that his holiness is more contagious than any sin, so he allowed some crazy situations to happen to him, like Mary of Bethany pouring oil on his feet, and prostitutes coming close to him. And the Mary of Bethany is the perfect image of the bride of Christ, who realized that so many sins have been forgiven, and therefore she loved much. This is the response that humanity is coming close to. Finally realizing the all-encompassing worth of God, and starts to love on him and appreciate him. The culmination of this love story between Christ and humanity happened on the cross, where he laid down his life for his bride, and he made himself one with her in blood. And most of the references around the cross are romantic references. For example, "It is finished" also means my beloved. And I understand why people translated it as finished, but there is a hidden meaning there in the original, in some of the original translations, original texts. The New Testament was in Greek, but Aramaic, in Aramaic it would also mean beautiful one or beloved, which is kind of cool. Jesus was talking to his bride with his last breath. And afterwards, the veil was torn in the temple, and every division between God and man had been blown away, and there was a free entrance for everyone, to all of humanity, to the presence of God. And the tent and temple are always pictures of human body. And once I heard an amazing sermon on how the different parts of the holy temple and holy tent are the descriptions of the female body. And you can do your homework if you want, and do a little research on that. It's not me who invented this teaching. Very smart people who know all the Jewish traditions came to that conclusion, that the temple and the human body are symbolic of each other. And when Jesus became one with humanity, this veil of separation had been broken by the sprinkling of blood, and humanity and God are now forever one. And this is the holiest thing. Some people don't like it, like, oh, God is not dirty like that. It is not dirty. This is the holiest thing about God's nature, and the holiest thing about his nature had been written into your own body. So you are the holy place, the temple of God. And his nature had been written into the structure of your body. I think this is kind of amazing. The first time I learned this, I was blown away. Whoever is united with the Lord is one spirit with him, says Paul. Paul is the one who discovers more of this unity with God. And the fun fact, in the previous verses in that chapter, Paul was talking about like why you shouldn't sleep with a prostitute, that kind of thing. So it wasn't on the theological train when he was talking about being one with the Lord. And you can ask the question, why are these things mixed with each other? And there is a reason why they are mixed, because these two issues are one. If you are one with the Lord and if you experience the unity with him, you probably won't be looking for a substitute. And if you are looking for satisfaction only in the image, you are kind of not able to experience the fullness of the circle of the Trinity. And this is why Paul made it clear that you shouldn't, but I'm gonna tell you what is the way that you won't even feel the need to look for satisfaction anywhere else. And this is in your union with God. You have died, and your new life is hidden with Christ in God. Don't you know that your body belongs to Christ as the members belong to the body? Paul has different descriptions of our union with God, and he insists on that reality that you have this distinction, but you already know that, the distinction part. You need to learn your unity with God, that you are merged into one, you are inseparable, you are overlapping completely. There is no difference. He is in you and you are in him. My favorite. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. We already heard it from Moses and from Jesus, but Paul adds a little bit of an extra information. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. And in all the previous verses, he's talking about marriage issues and how wives and husbands should behave and all that. And all of a sudden, he switches topic and he says, everything I said about God and about woman and man is actually about the circle of the Trinity. Paul made a clear reference from that to that. and he knew why he was doing that. As I said before, it is a sacrament. Marriage and human sexuality is a sacrament, a visible representation of the grace of God on the earth. And it's crazy that it doesn't say it is like Christ and the Church. It's kind of, it is a bit related. We can find some connections between those two kinds of loves. He says, this is Christ and the Church. He makes those two circles equal, which makes most of us kind of offended, because we think this is dirty and we don't want to lower our view of God's love. But maybe we don't need to lower our view of God's love. Maybe we should put a higher perspective on human sexuality so that it would match our experience of the love of God. I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I promise you to one husband, to Christ, so that I might present you as a pure virgin to him. Again, Paul is talking about the church as the bride of Christ. And the other culmination of this love story is in Revelations, at the marriage supper of the Lamb. I think it's not a one-time event in heaven, like first program for the new people in our district should experience that. I don't think it's something like that happens at a certain linear time. It's beyond time. The Lamb has been slain from the foundation of the world. So this union, this celebration of union, this is the marriage supper of the Lamb. And feasting and enjoying each other, and you being part of this love circle and experiencing the whole joy and ecstasy and bliss and intensity of this love is not a one-time event. It's the way of being in heaven. And in this wedding supper of the Lamb, I'm convinced that can be experienced not just after you die. You can join this feast anytime. It is happening beyond time and space. And probably if you die, you will experience it like more intensively, because you won't have any other reality but death. But you can see it and feel it anytime. You can partake of this circle of enjoyment when you're alive. Let us rejoice and be glad and give him glory, for the wedding of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. The new Jerusalem, the bride of the Lamb. Come, and I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And the Spirit and the bride say, come. And let the one who hears say, come. And let the one who is thirsty come, and let the one who wishes to take the free gift of water of life. The bride and the Spirit are joined together to love on Jesus, the bridegroom. We have a scene of this circle of love. And this is going on for eternity. This had been going on since before the beginning of time. And this is when the whole humanity is completely joining this circle of enjoyment and bliss and ecstasy that is inside of God. This is God's love story. He made man in his image so that they would reflect him and demonstrate him on the earth and be a representation of his relationships inside of himself. And this is what is lost at the fall of man. And this is what God is willing and trying to restore through prophets. And this is something that was not able for humanity to respond well to the love of God. So Jesus came and responded to the call of God in him as humanity. God's call for his lost bride had been answered by Jesus as he became whole of humanity and whole of God, united on the tree. And the wedding supper of the Lamb is only, quote unquote, the experience and enjoyment of that union that is now inseparable. And one of the things I was kind of talking about but not really talking about is that you can ask God about every aspect of human sexuality, and he will tell you what this part between man and woman is referring to. This is the image. Everything that is in here is made after something from this circle of the Trinity. And you can ask God, oh, I feel this desire, I feel this passion, I feel that, I long for this. What is it referring to? And you can also, especially if you're married, you can also ask God, what I experience in my relationship with you, how can I live it in my relationship with my spouse? But as someone who is far away from getting married, I can tell you that it's so much fun when I experience something new with God. and he tells me that, oh, this can also happen between people, and this is how I made that part of the image. And there's so much joy in it, talking about these things, and it can maybe make your sexual life more like the image of God, more compassionate and other-centered and sacrificial and kind and gentle, just like God is. But maybe if you look at the picture that God is painting about sexuality, you can draw conclusions of how passionately he desires to be one with you. How much ecstasy and bliss you can find in letting him love you. And one of the main points of this video is that God has made this image of the Trinitarian love, not just because this is what he looks like, but also to give you an impression what he is longing to have with you. He wants to come to you at least that close, but much closer. He wants to be that passionate, but way more passionate than that with you. He wants to give you that much joy, but way much more joy than that. He wants to give you that satisfaction, that fulfillment, that sense of fullness and wholeness. And he wants to be one with you, and he wants to have this romance, like this relationship kind of thing with you, when you are the other one that he loves and you can love him back. But he also wants to be one with you and wants to merge with you and wants the complete overlap kind of thing. He also wants to come over you and overtake you and love on you, and it can be wild and it can look very silent. I don't say what it should look like. When it happens to me, it is very much physical. I'm overwhelmed and I feel like all the cells of my body are becoming one with God. Of course, I am one with God thanks to Jesus, but there is an experience of that oneness. There is this participation of you through Jesus in the circle of the Trinity. And this is at least as intense as human sexual love, at least as joyful and tangible. And living anything less is I don't want to be condemning. And it's sad. It's just simply sad if you don't live it, because God just gives it freely to you. And there are many times when I don't live it and I forget about it. But all the time I feel like God is calling me back. I want you. I want to be one with you. I desire you. And God is kind of a wild lover. So everything that you desire, you can experience in your relationship with God. but way more intensively and deeply than you could ever have in a human relationship. In a time when I was really wanting to be a nun, like sometimes I have these seasons, and I was so not interested in relationships whatsoever. I felt like God just started to talk about these issues and said, you can stay single, you can stay alone, you can be a nun, whatever, but I'm gonna tell you that if you don't partake in that, you surely should partake in that, because this is the original circle, and you can have all of the original blueprint, even if you don't want the copied image on the earth. And you can have at least as much joy as they do, at least as much satisfaction and passion and wildness with me. And actually, even if they have this mock-up, this image, if they don't experience it in their relationship with me, probably they will use their relationship with another being to fulfill the void. And this is why relationships are so broken. As C.S. Lewis said, God is a wild man. And he wants you, and he wants all of you. And I don't know what are the boundaries of experiencing union with God, and what is okay and what is not, what is dirty, what is not. All I can say is that he wants to take over you, and sometimes it's very intense and very physical as well. And I wish that we all would experience that union and ecstasy of the love of God. And if we are called to, we might even experience it in our human relationships. Thank you very much for your attention. The starting point for this video was the video called Sex and God from Dan Mohler. I didn't say the things he says in that video because I think he says it way better than I do. You can check this out. And I was also mentioning the Theology of the Body from Christopher West. You can also read The Ecstasy of Loving God from John Crowder. These resources might help you. So thank you for watching. This is the end of the video, but side note is that this video is in no way related to my personal life, or I'm not like looking for a relationship with that video or anything like that. I'm talking about this because God has been talking about this for a long time, but I was afraid to share those things. I was afraid how people would react, they might get offended. I'm not able to articulate it right all the time. I'm sorry if I didn't say everything correctly or made things misunderstandable, but I wanted to share what God has already taught me on that issue, and I hope it has helped you. Maybe I'll partake in this romance of the Trinity. God bless you.